Welcome back to Fast Market, everyone. Kevin Hinks here. Joe Mazzola has agreed to stick around for the rest of the show and help us out. And now I'd like to bring in the Vice President of Research at LikeFolio.com, Miss Megan Brantley, to the show. She's going to take us through today's subject, which is Starbucks. Let's talk about coffee, Megan. You know, there's news out on Starbucks yesterday, Megan, but it doesn't seem to be affecting the stock very much, as it's not a very big story. But you have a different tack that you're taking on this. What are you seeing in Starbucks, Megan?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because obviously we saw Starbucks in the news. I can say from our data, from a consumer perspective, we didn't see it really move the needle that much. And so our data, you know, we're not really looking for those mentions about unionization or things of that nature. It at least didn't impact the consumer. But I think what was interesting is when you look at what is driving that demand, you know, what is inundating these baristas, and that's a lot of these mobile orders. And so I know that we've talked about in the past a lot of just how powerful or just how good Starbucks' app is. It's extremely popular. It has an extremely high happiness rating. And whenever we look at kind of what are these major drivers, we do see a pretty significant year-over-year jump in that mobile ordering. And, you know, this app has been around for a few years now. So to continue to see this usage and this growth, you know, plus 13% year-over-year, that's pretty significant, especially for someone with the volume and the breadth of Starbucks. You know, when we look at that, we're talking about hundreds of mentions every day that we're recording. This isn't a small sample size.
Megan, real quickly, with the mobile ordering, you know, you're seeing the 13%. You're seeing the 13% increase, kind of year over year in demand. How can that offset, you know, some of the issues that they are seeing with the labor shortages? Because, you know, what I'm seeing when I go into Starbucks, and this is anecdotal evidence, of course, but I mean, when you go into Starbucks, you're seeing the lines, you're seeing a kind of the bifurcated mobile section versus the people that are kind of walking in and ordering. Boy, and it really does seem like more and more people are adopting the mobile ordering. You know, how could Starbucks continue to build upon that going forward in your mind?
Yeah, I think that really this makes Starbucks much more efficient. You know, as you mentioned, it's so much quicker if you can go ahead and you can get your order in. It not only helps the store plan ahead and go ahead and start to get these drinks in the queue, but then it makes the pickup a lot easier. I know just anecdotally, even for myself, you know, whenever I've been out Christmas shopping with my sister's like, hey, let's go through Starbucks. And I'm like, you know, we really don't have time. Like, are we going to really run in and stop in the store? She's like, it'll be so quick. It'll take 2 seconds. I'll handle everything. She gets her app out. By the time I get there and pull through the drive-thru, everything's ready, and I didn't really even have to do anything. So I think that, you know, they're making it so much easier for consumers to conduct business with them, which is obviously something that you want to see moving forward. But it also makes it easier to really customize your drink and really personalize your drink. And a lot of these are these premium drinks. So the other thing on the chart that we didn't touch on, this other driver of demand, we've got a really strong growth in the demand for their seasonal and their special or limited edition offerings, especially heading into the holiday season. And then we also see elevated demand for these plant-based offerings. So, you know, drinks with oat milk or drinks with almond milk and things of that nature. And what's really interesting is all of these cost more. Right. This is really driving the average ticket price higher. And so I think that that's something that, you know, it's a lot easier to customize your drink on your phone than it is whenever you're trying to tell a barista all these different things you want. So I think all of these are working really nicely with each other to help give Starbucks a leg up, you know, not only in just the frequency of orders, but the amount of orders that they cost.
Yeah.
Megan, this company claims they're going to open 2,000 new stores in 2022. 3/4 of them are going to be international. 25% is going to be here in the United States. And why they do that is because expenses are lower international, which they're 50% of revenue here, only 44% international. That just leads to higher margins, let's face it. But how is this company still managing to grow and keep people happy? I mean, that total mentions versus sentiment, top right is what LikeFolio tells us to look for. Well, you can't get much more top right than your chart on Starbucks. How is this company still maintaining to grow, not only international, which I understand, but here in the United States, Megan?
I think that, they're doing a really good job understanding the preferences of consumers. When we look at these consumer happiness levels, as you can see, this chart is really telling because the volume, that's the size of the circle that's on the chart. The volume is so much higher. So it's got a larger consumer base. It's got a happier consumer base, which is really tough to do with that volume. And it's also has more momentum. It's further to the right, as you pointed out. So yes, while we are entering a seasonal period, sometimes plotting it versus a peer helps to show, okay, yes, it's seasonal. So, you would expect some quarter over quarter momentum heading into the holiday season with all of these special drinks that they put out, but they're outperforming what many people would consider comparable and competent peers. So I think that that's, one nice tidbit that if you're an investor, it's helpful to know, you would like to see a company who is outperforming in its space. But really, it comes down to, consumers are really liking even these new food menu items. I think that's another thing that they're adding. I know that they have now an Impossible Breakfast sandwich and things of that nature. But again, this just adds to a higher ticket size, too, whenever you are going, because maybe you're getting a coffee and you're getting a little snack to go along with it. So I think all of those different factors are definitely helping to reinforce Starbucks presence and make it more likely for a consumer to want to swing through there versus somewhere else.
Well, I think, Megan, I appreciate that. And like I said, I think the key to this is the mobile, as you said, because the add-ons, those all cost money, right? They do.
Yeah.
And when you look at, what Starbucks does relative to another stock we're going to talk about later on today is McDonald's. And I mean, there's a big difference in terms of the multiples that these companies trade at right now, right? And in terms of the growth. And Starbucks is trading right around 32 times earnings. And while they're growing their margins, sales aren't growing as quickly. And I think that that's something to kind of keep an eye on. And Kevin mentioned this, that here we are, we're looking at opening 2,000 new stores in the next year with Starbucks. So for me, I think one of the critical things to consider is, are they going to be able to continue to expand those margins with those mobile orderings? And that to me is critical to their success. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. They really need to be able to execute and continue to grow, as you mentioned. I think that especially on the last report, they got dinged because of COVID variants and how that was playing out in China, as the international segment is increasingly important for this company. So I think that could be, as things kind of normalize in society, that could be a boost moving forward for Starbucks as things start to get back to normal. But really, the key is, can they keep continuing to improve this mobile experience? Can they continue to improve the digital experience and keep consumers around, keep them happy, so that they are likely to, add those add-ons? And is Starbucks in touch with what the consumer wants? I think the oat milk, whenever it added oat milk to its menu, that was a huge driver of sales for Starbucks. So continuing to be in touch with the different, whether it's a dietary restriction or just what the consumer is craving, whether it's a cold drink. We saw cold drinks be a huge driver. I think that's critical for Starbucks to continue to keep that premium user base around.
One more question, Megan. You have on your sentiment page, the only other player on there is Dunkin' Brands. And as you know, Dunkin' Brands as of the end of 2020 is now privately held by a company called Inspire Brands. They also own Arby's and Buffalo Wild Wings and Sonic and Jimmy John's. Do you guys have any difficulties in getting data on a privately held company versus publicly? Dunkin' used to be public, now it's privately held. Does that disrupt any of your data?
No, it really doesn't, because at the end of the day, most consumers probably don't even know if Dunkin' is public or private. They just know that they're going to Dunkin' to get their coffee. And so for us, we track a lot of these privately owned companies, which is why we have Dunkin', so that we can see those competitive benchmarks for something like a Starbucks. Because from a consumer perspective, they don't care who owns the company for the most part. No, they just want to know, where they can get the best cup of coffee.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you're right. I mean, 99% of the people that drive up to a Dunkin's don't realize that it went from publicly traded to private at the end of 2020. They don't know that, and they don't care, frankly, and why would they,
No,
right?
they don't.
Is the coffee hot? Does it taste good? That's all they care about. Megan Brantley, Vice President of Research at LikeFolio.com. Thank you so much for coming on a Friday and giving our show a little caffeine boost. Have a great day, Megan, and have a great weekend. All right.